Women signal desire far more through restraint than through speech. What she wants most is exactly what she'll never spell out. The requests that never leave her mouth are the ones that matter the most, and the men who understand this quietly shape the entire dynamic. Decades ago, Leon Festinger introduced the idea of cognitive dissonance, the tension between what people claim they want and what their actions reveal. Nowhere is that gap wider than in attraction. A woman may explain her preferences logically, but her nervous system often reacts to something entirely different. This isn't about manipulation or games. It's about understanding the underlying structure of female desire. Most men spend their lives reacting on the surface level. They take words at face value, ignore behavior, and then feel blindsided when the spark fades a few months in. They can't explain why the energy cooled, why the excitement feels replaced by polite conversation, why intimacy starts to feel scheduled instead of instinctive. What no one explains is that female desire doesn't run on logic or checklists. It runs on something far older, something wired into the body long before language existed. From an early age, many women learn that wanting too openly comes with consequences. Being direct can be judged, shamed, or misinterpreted. So desire gets expressed sideways, through tension, pauses, glances, and shifts in behavior. If you don't understand that language, you're always reacting too late, living one step behind what's actually happening. And this matters because your ability to notice and respond to those signals determines everything. Not status, not looks, not clever lines. It's whether you can sense what she needs before she has to flatten it into words. That's the difference between being deeply chosen and merely tolerated. Research into attraction repeatedly points to the same conclusion. Desire grows in the presence of uncertainty, not disorder, but controlled unpredictability. The chemicals tied to early attraction don't spike because of comfort alone. They spike because of anticipation, contrast, and emotional movement. A man who knows when to step forward and when to pause, when to give, and when to withhold slightly activates something that routine never will. Brain imaging studies back this up. When women feel genuine attraction, the areas associated with craving light up more than those tied to calm bonding. That craving isn't a defect. It's a built-in feature, one that modern dating advice often tries to soften or deny. Biology doesn't respond to what sounds polite. It responds to what works. So let's move beneath the surface, into the behaviors women long for but won't articulate. Not because they're deceptive, but because saying them out loud would drain them of their effect. Some things lose their charge the moment they're explained. These are 6 such behaviors, 6 things she wants you to do without ever asking. First, she wants to feel slightly unbalanced, not threatened, just momentarily released from control. Many men mistake dominance for force or volume. They think leading means pushing. Real dominance is calm and grounded. It shows up in decisive movement, in the way you guide her through a space without hesitation, in choosing a direction without turning it into a debate. For many women, this creates relief. They spend their days managing details, making decisions, holding things together. When she's with you, she doesn't want another planning session disguised as romance. She wants to feel like she can relax into your lead, like responsibility can rest somewhere else for a while. She can't ask for this, because the moment she has to instruct you to take charge, the spell is broken. Leadership only works when it's felt, not requested. Second, she wants you to stop seeking constant approval. Endless checking turns desire into paperwork. Each "is this okay" or "do you want me to" chips away at tension. It frames intimacy as a negotiation instead of an experience. This doesn't mean ignoring consent or boundaries. It means being present enough to read the moment and act with assurance. Confidence creates safety far more effectively than hesitation. When you move naturally, attuned to her responses, she feels seen without having to micromanage the interaction. Third, she wants you to hold your frame when she tests you. Tests aren't traps, they're calibrations. She may challenge you lightly, question a decision, or push back emotionally. What she's watching isn't your answer, but your stability. Do you crumble, over-explain, or retreat? Or do you stay grounded, amused, and steady? When you don't collapse under pressure, her nervous system relaxes. She feels that you can handle more than just good moods. She'll never say she wants this, because tests are often unconscious. But when you pass them, attraction deepens quietly. Fourth, she wants to feel deeply desired without being placed on a pedestal. Desire that's too careful feels weak. Desire that's overwhelming feels unsafe. The balance is intensity without neediness. When you want her clearly, confidently, without trying to extract reassurance in return, it triggers something powerful. She feels chosen, not worshipped. There's a difference. One creates polarity, the other creates pressure. Fifth, she wants you to create emotional movement. Predictability kills tension. That doesn't mean chaos or inconsistency, but variation. Shifts in pace, tone, and energy keep her engaged. One moment you're playful, the next grounded and serious. This contrast keeps her present. It mirrors the emotional rhythm that initially drew her in. She won't ask for this because she experiences it, not thinks about it. She just knows when it's gone. Finally, she wants you to know when to pull back. Most men believe attraction grows by constant pursuit. In reality, space often intensifies desire. When you don't chase every moment, when you allow silence, when you let her feel the absence of your attention briefly, anticipation builds. This isn't manipulation. It's respecting the natural ebb and flow of connection. She wants to miss you sometimes. She wants room for desire to stretch. None of these behaviors can be requested directly without losing their effect. They work precisely because they're felt, not explained. Once you understand this, everything changes. You stop reacting to words alone and start responding to what's actually happening beneath them. And once you see that layer, you can't unsee it. This is where the deeper data comes in, the part that most people either misunderstand or deliberately soften. When researchers began looking closely at female fantasy and desire patterns, a clear theme emerged. A large number of women imagine scenarios where they aren't the one steering every decision. Not because they want to be harmed or disrespected, but because the feeling of being wanted so strongly that a man naturally takes the lead is deeply intoxicating. In those moments, the weight of choice disappears, the constant self-monitoring fades, the fear of being judged for wanting too much simply dissolves. Now, this needs to be said clearly because it's often twisted. Consent is not optional, it's the foundation. But consent does not mean stopping the moment every few seconds to request approval like you're filling out paperwork. Real consent is built through trust. It's created in a dynamic where she knows you're paying attention, where you're reading her signals, where a change in her breathing, a look in her eyes, or a subtle shift in her posture communicates more than words ever could. That level of connection doesn't come from scripts or verbal checklists. It comes from presence, from awareness, from being tuned in rather than stuck in your head. When you stop constantly asking for permission and start moving with calibrated boldness, something fundamental shifts. She stops feeling like she's guiding you or teaching you how to be a man. She starts feeling like she's with someone who already knows who he is. That distinction is everything. Ask yourself honestly when the last time was that you led without glancing back for reassurance. If you have to pause and think about it, the answer is already there. And this naturally leads into another thing she wants but won't say. She wants you to push back when she tests you. Women don't test men out of cruelty. They do it because they need to know if you're solid. They need to see whether you'll hold your ground when there's pressure or if you'll fold the moment there's friction. This is where most men lose the plot. She makes a sharp comment. He rushes to apologize. She pulls away slightly. He chases harder. She creates distance. He collapses into reassurance-seeking behavior. And in that exact moment, something subtle but irreversible happens. Respect erodes. Not on a conscious level, but deep in the part of her mind that's evaluating whether you're someone she can rely on when life stops being easy. Long-term relationship research backs this up. Stability isn't predicted by the absence of disagreement. It's predicted by the ability of both people to remain themselves during conflict. When she challenges you, she isn't trying to defeat you. She's watching to see if you disappear. She's checking whether you'll abandon your own center just to keep things smooth. And if you do, She won't feel safe with you, even if she can't explain why. Because if you can't stand your ground with her, how will you stand your ground against the world? So when she pushes, you don't react emotionally, you don't get defensive, and you definitely don't collapse. You acknowledge her perspective, you stay present, and you don't move from who you are. That calm immovability is what she's responding to. Not because she wants conflict, but because she wants to know you're unshakable. There's another layer beneath this that most men overlook entirely. She wants mystery. Total transparency is one of the fastest ways to suffocate desire. When she knows everything about you too quickly, when every insecurity, fear, and unresolved wound is laid out in the first few months, there's nothing left to discover. Desire needs space. It needs the unknown. Intimacy and desire are not the same thing, and confusing them is where attraction goes to die. Deep emotional closeness without tension doesn't create passion, it creates comfort, and comfort without polarity turns romance into companionship. This doesn't mean becoming cold or emotionally unavailable. It means maintaining your own inner world. You have thoughts that aren't immediately shared. You have pursuits that exist outside of her. You have a life that doesn't revolve around making her feel attended to every waking moment. Sometimes when she asks what you're thinking, the most grounded response is simply saying nothing. Not as a tactic, not as a game, but because not every thought needs to be externalized. Some things are yours. That small amount of distance keeps curiosity alive. It keeps her wondering. It keeps her invested. The moment you become entirely predictable is the moment desire begins to flatten. You become familiar in the worst way, reliable, comfortable, and invisible. And finally, there's one desire that contradicts almost everything men are told to do. She wants you to prioritize your mission over her. On the surface, this sounds wrong. Women say they want attention, time, presence. But what they actually respond to is a man who has direction, a man who is moving towards something meaningful. Ambition isn't attractive because of money or status alone. It's attractive because it signals capability. It shows that you can navigate the world, build something, and lead yourself. When you drop everything for her, when she becomes the center of your universe, the signal you're sending isn't devotion, it's dependency. And that's suffocating. She doesn't want to be your entire world. She wants to be part of a world you're already building. This is why men who are too available, too eager, too responsive often lose attraction quickly. They shrink themselves down and place her on a pedestal. In doing so, they lose the very qualities that drew her in. Women are drawn to expansion, to momentum, to men who are growing. When you prioritize your mission, when you calmly tell her you can't see her tonight because you have work to do, something counterintuitive happens. She doesn't feel rejected. She feels respect. She starts valuing your time because you value it first. The dynamic shifts. Instead of you chasing, she begins to lean in. And that single change alters everything that follows. None of these desires are spoken plainly, because if they were, they'd lose their power. They live beneath language, in behavior, in tension, in the quiet moments where words fail. Once you understand this, you stop trying to be chosen through effort and start being chosen through presence. And that's where everything truly changes. Because now she's no longer just reacting to you. Now she's investing. Now she's checking herself, wondering if she's doing enough to keep your attention. That shift isn't manipulation or strategy, it's biology responding to perceived value. When you stop chasing and start leading your own life, her nervous system recalibrates automatically. And this leads directly into the final behavior she wants, but will never voice. She wants you to be the one who ends the interaction first. This sounds simple, but it's where most men completely sabotage themselves. They linger. They overstay. They stretch the date, the conversation, the moment far past its peak, hoping to squeeze out a little more connection. And in doing that, they drain the very tension that made the interaction alive in the first place. Women are drawn to men who have somewhere to be, men whose lives are already full. A man who can enjoy a moment fully and then leave while the energy is still high sends a powerful signal. It says he's not trying to consume the experience. He's confident enough to let it end naturally. There's a principle in psychology that explains this perfectly. People don't remember experiences based on the average of everything that happened. They remember the emotional high point and how it ended. That final impression is what sticks. So when you stay too long, when the energy starts to fade and you're still trying to keep it alive, that's what she remembers. She remembers the drop. She remembers the subtle neediness. She feels that you didn't want the moment to end because you didn't have anything better calling you forward. But when you're the one who closes it first, when you say you need to go while things still feel good, you leave her suspended in anticipation. She's left wanting more. She's left replaying the interaction in her mind. And that space, that absence, is where attraction actually grows. Across cultures, this pattern shows up again and again. The person who controls the terms of separation holds the social power, not the one who clings, not the one who begs for more time, the one who can walk away calmly. This applies everywhere. Text conversations, dates, arguments, even intimacy itself. Pulling back first isn't about games. It's about genuinely having a life that's moving you forward, and women chase that energy every time because it represents momentum. And here's the truth most people will never say out loud. Women don't want you to ask them what they want. They want you to already understand. Not because they're testing you, but because the man who has to ask is the man who hasn't learned to see. And seeing is the foundation of desire. Attraction can't be negotiated. You can't logic someone into wanting you. You can't explain your way into passion. Desire only responds to what's embodied. Most men are so afraid of making the wrong move that they end up making the biggest mistake of all. They play it safe. They smooth out every edge. They become inoffensive, predictable, and emotionally neutral. They turn themselves into a version of a man no one could reasonably object to, and no one deeply wants. Because desire doesn't come from safety alone. It comes from tension, from polarity, from a man who's willing to lead even when he doesn't know exactly how it will turn out. Everything you've heard here requires risk. It requires letting go of constant approval seeking. It requires stopping the performance and stepping into presence. It requires trusting your ability to read the moment instead of asking permission for every step. The men who understand this don't wait to be validated. They don't ask for confirmation. They move through the world with a quiet certainty that can be felt instantly, not arrogance, certainty. And that certainty is magnetic. In a world filled with men who hesitate, who apologize for existing, who shrink themselves to be acceptable, the man who doesn't becomes rare, valuable, unforgettable. She will never explain any of this to you. She can't. The moment she has to verbalize it, the effect disappears. The magic collapses under explanation. But now you see it. What you do with that awareness is your decision. You can dismiss it. You can rationalize it away because it doesn't match the story you were taught. Or you can accept that desire operates on levels most men never learn to perceive, and you can start paying attention to those frequencies. You were never missing information. You were missing attunement. And once you tune in, nothing looks the same again.